Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over the 9 new Octarius maps I've made for your games of Kill Team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of these new terrain maps. Do you find them useful or whatnot? And remember, I've got Discord you can check out for free in the episode description below, as well as an affiliate link at Element Games and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support as well. But yeah, so this is kind of like a terrain update, because I previously did this, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, where I made 3 Octarius maps along with my updated guide for actually placing terrain using crit ops, and building balanced boards. So since then, thanks to Nick from Crossfire Games, I was actually able to build some more up-to-date maps, because I'm actually planning on building a new set of 9 maps for another board voted by my patrons. So this is an update because some of the feedback I got, apart from some people being upset I made 9 maps, I made Octarius maps, which was funny to see, but a lot of the feedback was people actually wanted 9 individual maps instead of 3 general purpose maps. So that's what I've gone and done. Using the images Nick was able to gather for me, I was able to make this new map pack. So this is kind of me just testing it out, as well as designing 9 new maps for everyone to use. So the main thing with these maps, they are designed to work without doors, but doors are fine. So if you want to play with doors, that's okay. But the key thing is you'll see 2 crosses on each map, and that means the vantage point isn't in use. So it's still there, but you can't end your move on it. So you can climb across it, but you can't end your move on it. So because it's kind of based on the Warhammer World maps, my advice would be, I'm trying to find on eBay 2 spare Octarius buildings and then just not have the floor. You don't need to do that. But if you were going to build an Octarius and you wanted to use these maps, just don't glue in the floor, because you can just slot it in, and that would be a good compromise. The other thing is, this is just entirely Octarius, so it's not like Warhammer World where they've got a bit more, because I think you can just get away with building an entire board from Octarius, which you can't really do with the other kill zones. So let's get into it, and I'll talk through each map. I have an article version where you can always permanently access the maps, and I'll have links down in the episode description below. But let's get on with it. So first up, this is layout 1. So as you can see, each square represents an inch, and partly what I've designed with these maps, so it's really hard to alpha strike with commandos and wormblade. So if you're forward deploying, there's no way you can forward deploy onto a vantage. So it's kind of more balanced in that regards. But this is layout 1, so both of the midline objectives on the left and right are kind of open, and they're covered by opposing vantage points, so they're hard to contest. But to balance out, both sides have 2 safe drop objectives, each covered by a heavy cover, and that should kind of mitigate that. But that's a very simple board. It's kind of a twist on my first hamburger board, but it is what it is, and it should have some interesting movement capabilities. Like on the left-hand side, that small scrap pile in the mid side has just enough of a gap for a 28.5 and smaller base to walk around normally, whereas if you're on a 32 millimeter base or larger, you'll need to scramble over. But opposingly, if the door is blocked, you can scramble over and fight on that point. So there's some nice balancing there. Now for layout 2, this was kind of a harder map to design, especially with the lack of terrain Octarius actually has, and having 2 objectives on the midline. But basically, you've got 2 objectives on either side that once again covered safely via heavy from either side, but can be contested. And then you've got 2 objectives in the open, once again, both covered by vantage points. So you can put a barricade there to get cover, but trying to get an obscured shot is quite hard, but you actually can. So it's a more easier map to defend. There is a lot of mid space in the open, but it was kind of the only way to actually design this map without actually blocking too much space. So it may be a bit too difficult for melee teams to move up and contest, but they can kind of launch. They can go into the mid board of their own territory and then launch counterattacks. There is ways to play, although I'm still a bit up in the air about this map. Then we have map number 3, layout 3. So this one is, once again, each side has 2 safe objectives, and then you've got 2 midline objectives where one will provide cover. They're both kind of covered by the vantage point, but it should be enough to provide some safe cover. It's more difficult on the right-hand side objective on the midline, but that's kind of just a scrum for both sides, because the vantage point will cover it, but there's basically no cover unless someone puts a barricade, but even then they can just be charged from the other side. So it will really come down to who wants to take the risks for the midline objectives, but it'll be quite interesting regardless. And notably, the mid-right objective near the blocked off vantage point should just be able to be safe to contest via the building underneath, so it's not as open as it looks. Then for layout 4, this is our hot dog deployment. And yeah, once again, kind of what I built before with the current map, but updated. So, you know, you should be able to get some obscuring cover from the objective on the blue side, closer to the drop zone, but there's trade-offs either side. So there's 2 definitely safe objectives, whereas there's like more objectives in the open. I've tweaked this one a little bit, but it should be okay. And you have that big wall on the red hand side kind of hindering your ability to move up. So while it's more defendable, it's easy to get stuck and actually difficult to move out. Then for layout 5, this is another interesting one. I think it's mostly safe, but once again, because there's so much board space, it's hard to design with just a single Octarius set. But once again, you have vantage points covering the opposing objectives, and it should be quite safe to at least get up onto those objectives. But if someone's going to get up and, you know, shoot them down in the midboard, they are going to be basically with no cover, so you do have ways to counterfire. And then this is layout 6 for hot dog, layout 6 for hot dog. And yeah, once again, it's the similar map ethos design. It's still quite difficult to design, but once again, both sides have 2 safe objectives, and then they have the blue side has their bottom right objective, safe from obscuring if they put a barricade in the right place. But it should be another interesting map. Like you can see on the blue side, they can move up to the midpoint and get to that point. They will just be in cover, so they don't need to worry about barricades, but also the opposing side can move up to counter on the following turn. So it should offer some nice, interesting like altercations and fighting for objectives. Then for a quesadilla deployment, this is layout 7, layout 7, and this should be okay. Like I've made the left-hand side, the top left objective, difficult for both sides to get to quickly. So if both sides were fighting for the right-hand side objective, it's going to be more like just who risks going out, whereas on the top left hand side it's quite safe, so it's just slowed down by terrain. But overall should be an okay board. Then for layout 8, it's a more difficult board because all the objectives are on the midline, but to compensate, you've got once again that objective on the middle left corner, which both sides can contest quite easily, whereas the mid bottom right objective is kind of safe for red but not as easy to get to. Whereas blue, if they put a barricade in the bottom corner, they can get obscured and then quickly move up to contest. So once again, it should offer some interesting battles. And then for the final layout, layout 9, we have another similar objective, and to try and make it a little bit more disadvantageous for how safe the red side can be, I've put the long wall near the oil pump, so they're actually slowed down quite a bit if they want to get to that objective. Whereas the blue side, it's a little bit more defendable, but they have more choices to move out. So it should be some interesting board design overall. But yeah, for the Octarius map layouts overall, yeah, so that's pretty much it. These are currently the final versions, but if people test them and feed them back to me, I will update them, and I'll just update the link and the article, because once again, the article is basically going to be a living article. So anytime I change my Octarius maps or add more maps to it from different sets that are for kill team or other different terrain sets, it will all be there, so you can easily access it. And yeah, if I'm going to change it, currently this is 2.1, so the original one was 2.0, because I consider my first map pack 1.0. But hopefully that explanation kind of makes sense about the maps. It's still a bit of iffiness. I find like the hamburger layouts are quite fine. It's more so once you get more space from like the quesadilla and hot dog deployments is where it becomes quite weird, which is why I would like just a little bit more terrain. But when I come onto my future map packs where I use like the box sets you got from season 1 with more terrain, I think that balances out a lot to build much more fairer maps, because, you know, that'll be harder to replicate in a tournament, but at least you can provide safer boards with not as much open space, which can be the downside when you're relying on one box. And even Octarius only goes so far. But hopefully those made sense. Once again, my patrons and people in my Discord got this early, especially my patrons, and I'll be working on my other map terrain pack soon. But I'll be interested to hear your feedback, so let me know. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Once again, let me know if you like these maps, if you found them useful, and, you know, anything else you'd like to add. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, and a affiliate link to Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crit, I have Tom, Sam, Nick, Mr. Meatwad, John Thomas, Dad of Golden's Ben, and for my veterans of the crit, I have Sam. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, you know, if you're my patrons, you know what map packs are coming next because you voted for them, but it should be interesting. But I found creating these map packs really great. And once again, special thanks goes to Nick from Crossfire Games. So he's the guy who designed, you know, the Kill Team scoreboard app. So you should check out. And he does an Etsy, which I'll put in the episode description below as well if you want to buy some of his stuff. Really cool guy and really helpful. But yeah, hopefully you found that useful. It actually took me a long time to create all these maps in Photoshop. But yeah, be interested to see how people find them. I've got a review for the annual coming on Saturday. And yeah, in the meantime, I'm just painting up stuff. So until next time, no matter whatever map you're playing on, there's always a chance to win, as long as you can roll a crit.